You have a long history working with Olympians and were the high performance director at the US Ski and Snowboard, leading over 500 international podiums and 15 Olympic medals in 2018. Overall, you contributed to the success of 50 medalists across 7 Olympic Games. That's huge, that's major.
I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of good people. Hopefully, I've helped a little bit, but yes, I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of Olympian.
So, where did your journey in fitness begin, and how did you get started with skiing and snowboarding? And take me back to your fitness story.
Yeah, so like I was always into sport growing up and loved sport. Not particularly talented or actually that dedicated as an athlete, but I love playing football, soccer. I'm from England, so playing soccer in England, but playing anything, rugby, cricket. It didn't really matter. Swimming and such like. Really liked it. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do post school, so I thought I'd be a PE teacher because I like sport and might be like physical education teacher. I kind of volunteered for a year after I finished high school before I started university. Decided within about 6 weeks that was not for me, and not the career, but pursued an undergraduate degree the following year in sports science. Anyway, really liked it. Started excelling as a subject matter. I kind of really enjoyed it. When sort of finished that, was doing some personal training and things like that when I was in university and post university within health clubs. And went back to do a master's degree in exercise physiology. Thought I'd kind of, go a bit deeper on the academic side. And while I was there, I got to work volunteer for the British Olympic swim team. This is in the early 2000s, leading up to the Athens Olympics. And I got, I guess, hooked. I got to kind of work with Olympians, not doing anything glamorous, taking heart rates and lactates, and kind of maybe some morning wellness scores and things like that. But really, really enjoyed it. And then was super fortunate from there to kind of build a career in sports science and fitness.
That's so cool. So you were really into the data and the technology and the science, and that kind of took you from one sport to another sport and how you built your career. I love that. That's fun.
Yeah, yeah. Over my career, like the skiing and snowboarding, I've worked for the Olympic team, the US ski team, twice. Once in leading up to the Torino Games in '06, and then again came back a decade later as the high performance director. But I'd only been skiing twice when I took that job for the first time. I'd been to the
Right.
Alps with a school trip. I've been fortunate to work across about 10 or 12 different sports, and it's more the working with athletes rather than the sport that I get really excited about.
And so what brought you to Tonal?
Yeah, so been doing this Olympic thing, 7 Olympic Games for close to 20 years. And the last, I guess, close to 5 of them, I started doing a lot more to help athletes, but in the technology space and working with startups in Silicon Valley. I started mentoring and supporting some small companies like seed level, Series A companies. But I got kind of into the Silicon Valley mix and hooked with running projects around that. And I was like, oh, like this Olympic thing's cool and I love sport, but here I can apply a lot of the same fundamental principles of science-based training, but I might be able to do it in a technology company. That's really interesting. I'm kind of excited about that opportunity. I got a tonal for Michaela Schifrin, who's arguably the world's best ever skier. At the start of the pandemic in 2020, I tried it shortly afterwards, loved it, and then about a year later, they said, "Would you like to come and join the company?"
That's very cool. Sounds very organic. And so, what is tonal? I mean, obviously, I know what it is, but I want to hear it from the source. So, walk me through what it is and why you initially got it, and then why you came on board and how people can use it.
Yeah. So this is from my VP product because I always
Yeah.
struggle with like kind of things and I never have a great elevator pitch. It's an entire gym that fits in your space with personal training. And so I'll break each of those down. It's an entire gym in that you can do 250 plus movements from deadlifting and squatting to bench press and flies to rotational chops. whatever you want to do things. It goes up to 200 pounds, so 100 pounds per arm, and actually feels about 250 pounds of free weight, equivalent weight. You can do everything from strength training to yoga to hit on there. So it's literally an entire gym.
And it
It
like hangs on your wall like a painting.
fits in your space, so it hangs on the wall. It's beautiful. It's designed to be shown off, whether that's in your home gym or in your living room. It takes up about 5 inches when it's not sort of out and being used. So it's got flat screen TV and it looks beautiful and very sleek, and so it fits in your space. And then with personal training is, it's got these incredible ways to adapt weight, to recommend programs. There's 300 coach-led programs, 5,000 workouts. There's coaching cues and form feedback. There's ways to manipulate resistance and to progressive overload. And so it's kind of those kind of trifecta that makes it really interesting product.
And it's super easy to use. So I got to demo it, and I didn't do my deep dive into the product, but I want to. Because I'm totally the audience. I mean, I like during the pandemic ran out and bought dumbbells for my apartment, and I'm on different digital apps doing programs, workouts, strength training, and a lot of the time, for whatever reason, and I'm sure a lot of other runners and triathletes can relate, it's like to go to the gym to lift weights is not always fun. And what I love about having access to programs and things in my apartment is that I don't need to allocate a lot of mental time to make the transition to say to myself, like, okay, you're going to the gym, here's what we're going to do. Like, it's all here. And for me, I mean, that's what makes it great. And obviously, I'm preaching to the choir over here.
Yeah, I'm a little biased wearing the logo, or normally am, but yeah. So absolutely, we talk to like a lot of our customers, and it's like just reduces that cognitive load of training. I don't have to think about it.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
For people like yourself, it's like I don't have to think at all. I can just plug in. I know I'm going to get a good workout. It's going to progressively overload me, so I'm going to make adaptations. It's going to vary the exercises appropriately, so I kind of get the slightly different stimuluses and training I need. I get to tell it my goals of what I want to work on. So I want to improve my endurance or my stability or my strength or whatever it might be, so it can kind of do that. And then for people actually like me, because I like to think about my workouts a little bit, then it becomes a lot more of a collaborative tool. So like, in that sense, there's no cognitive load. And the way that I use it, I like to write some of my own programs. I write a lot of the programs that are on Tonal for everyone else, but I kind of like to do that. And then it can make suggestions or recommendations, or I can add weight modes and do these different things. And so it becomes this more collaborative tool. But yeah, really, like, I was not involved in the inventing team, but incredible piece of kit to originate.
And were you like, where do you stand with strength training? I mean, after working with Olympic athletes for over a few decades, obviously we know how important it is, but how did you get sort of passionate about it, and what do you bring into the mix when it comes to the strength training?
Yeah, strength training's always been a key part of the athletes that I've worked with training regimes since I first started. And even when I was working way back in, for the Athens Games in '04, I got to work with swimmers. I worked with middle distance runners. For '08, I worked with some triathletes, and kind of things. And strength training has always been a sort of critical part of what, like, most people would say are more cardiovascular, endurance focused sports. But at the elite end, endurance athletes have been resistance training forever.
Right.
And I've worked like sports like skiing, where people for Lindsey Vonn and Michaela Schifrin and Bodie Miller and kind of there, where like it's absolutely essential. They've got to resist, 3 or 4 times their body weight in a turn on snow. And so resistance training has always been a passion of mine. Early in my career, I was kind of a hybrid physiologist strength coach. And so I would do the sort of more classical, here's a lactate threshold, a power curve, a VO2 max, and sort of more classical cardiovascular physiology. But I always liked to be in the weight room too. And then later in my career, like the strength coaches and strength and conditioning coaches that I got to work with were just exceptional people that I tried to learn as much as I could from.
Why do you think it's such a challenge for people, just everyday athletes, like recreational athletes, to make that jump or take the leap or get to the gym? Like, what do you think it is?
I I think just change is slow.
Yeah.
I think for many people, the benefits of cardiovascular training, if you're an everyday athlete, you go running because you've enjoyed running your entire life. It's part of your identity. You've got a habit around it, the sort of consistency, whether it's running, cycling, swimming, but your cardiovascular stuff. So the everyday athletes have been doing that for a long time. And strength training is a way of thinking like it supports that, right? It makes me better at this thing, that thing. It's not absolutely essential for that thing. But it
Right.
is essential if you want to be really good or do it for a very long time.
Or
But
not get
it's not as
injured. Yeah.
immediate. And so I think that takes a long. And then for general population, because the sort of the CDC and others will say that, like, on average about 50% of the US population meets the guidelines for aerobic sort of minimum standards, so like 150 to 180 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise. About 50% of the US population reaches that, but only 30% reaches the strength guidelines, which is muscle strengthening activities twice a week. And I think that's just because we've been pushing the benefits of cardiovascular training for health for so
Yeah.
long. And while the data has been building for decades now that strength training is equally as good, if not, this is not a competition, they're both great and you should do both, but it's equally as beneficial. It's only been in the last 10 or so years that that's really come into popular culture, and you'll hear people talking about it, and longevity influencers and others will be saying, yes, do your cardio work, but actually
Right.
resistance training has also been shown to have the same benefits in, on, whether it's type 2 diabetes, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, even neurological Alzheimer's, and the benefit, like, so there's a host of benefits of exercise, but
Yeah.
I think we're still just taking some time to really, that to seep into the psyche of the population.
Yeah. And I think also, like, I feel like, being able to strength train at home, I think the biggest hurdle is not lifting or doing the training, it's the going, it's the moving, it's the shifting, right? Because it's almost like going to the pool for me anyway. I don't know about, my listeners, but and so I feel like a lot of that is consistency and building a habit.
Hmm.
And it's less about necessarily the doing, right? It's not like when I go to the gym or when I'm lifting, I love it. It's for me, I find it so relaxing, but I'm also working out. Like it's not relaxing like I'm sleeping, but it's like relaxing, it's grounding. So, how does tonal kind of help with, building consistency, building strength programs for athletes of all levels? And what about it, being an at-home device makes it
Yeah.
helpful?
So I 100% agree. I think it's about habit, and then I think it's also about slightly intimidation for some people. If they haven't done
Yeah.
it in the weight room, it can be intimidating, particularly, unfortunately, for females. It's
Yes.
always been the most inviting environment to go into there. And so there's this sort of gym intimidation perspective. And there's also like a safety element of, am I doing this right? And
Right.
so tonal dress is like the convenience factor is, well, it's in your home. And it's not stuck away in a garage or in a cupboard. Like there's pros and cons of being hung to the wall like a big screen TV, but it means it's there. You get to walk past it all the time. And
Right.
actually, it turns out you don't just walk past it; you do work out on it. And we have a ton of data showing consistency of time over there. But like, it's designed to be beautiful, so it's not put in a garage. Because it gets put in a garage, like if you have your home gym in your garage, that's a different matter. But like, if you're putting it out the way to kind of things, then you're not going to walk past it as often and kind of things. So number one, it's designed to be in your space where you want to be. Number two, we have a bunch of both of sort of software and I guess behavioral science concepts that we try to leverage to help people to tell us to the goals. So we also have a phone app. We can give you a push notification. Hey,
I'm
we haven't
just
seen
gonna
you.
ask. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like we haven't seen you in 24, 48, 72 hours. Would you like to come and give us a workout? We have program recommendations so we can give you the right thing at the right time. We can, there's lots of ways that we can kind of leverage the technology to try and help you nudge you, as it were, into the things that you want to tell you to do. And then number two, when you do start working out, number one, because we work via electromagnetic resistance, it's a motor. It's the
Okay.
easiest example is it's a it's a Tesla compared to a combustion engine or an electric car. It creates it like that. The advantage of that is there's no big, you're doing squats and you're having to load up heavy weights and lift them and get them on the bar. It's a touch of a button. Everything is a touch. You can manipulate the resistance at a touch of a button. So that means, like, number one, it's super time efficient. A lot of people, what we hear is, I don't have time to do this. Well,
Yeah.
actually, you can change the weight from 100 pounds to 1 pound to 200, or 5 pounds to 200 pounds in the space of, as long as it takes you to touch a screen. So it's a time efficient point of view. And the fact that it's yours and it's your home, you're never waiting for any equipment. So you can
Right.
move through your exercises really,
I like
really
that.
time efficiently.
Yeah, because sometimes when you go to the gym, you have to like work in with other people, also carrying the weights across the floor to put them on the barbell or the dumbbell, whatever. It's like, that's great. So, do you have, in terms of programming, what kind of instructors are you working with? Who are some of the coaches that you have on board?
Yeah, so we have seven full-time coaches and some guest coaches that range, and their expertise is everything from traditional, more sort of let's say strength training, kind of hypertrophy training, traditional, through to more functional exercise. But we have programs for the fit over 40s and 50s. We have perimenopause programs. We've done some stuff with Stacey Sims in the past.
Love
Some
her. My listeners
collaborations.
know her. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done some collaborations with Stacey. We've done some collaborations with lots of different individuals. So we have it's 300 4-week programs, 5,000 workouts. So an
Wow.
even close to infinite number of coach-led programs that you can have, that can be different styles, from more linear. A coach is working out at the same time. You're getting
Right.
coaching cues. You're seeing their form. To more of what we call a classic style, which is a bit more like, hey, there's a movement demo. Maybe you don't want quite as much instruction and take it only play.
Hmm.
There's movement demos that you can make big, full screen or small, and there'll be stand-ups, but it's not as interactive. And some of our more traditional lifters like that kind of classic style. And then
Right.
a lot of other people love this linear coach working out with them.
So is that live? Are we signing up for classes live? Because I know
We
you
have
record here in New York City and
Yeah,
you have
we
a
have
studio.
live classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we also have these 4-week. They're pre-recorded, like live. They're not live. The coach is working out with you. We call them
Right.
linear, but yeah, they're live style kind of things. But it's not that live at that time. But we also then have live workouts that you can do with a group of other people.
And so let's like go back. I meant to ask this when you were talking about the weights and the lifting, and you mentioned Stacey Sims, and she's a huge advocate of lifting heavy for women who are over 50. I mean, probably for everyone, right? So this is my question. This is just purely like I'm trying to understand this, and since you have the, you know, actual science background, is it the same thing like to lift the actual plates and the bars as it is to lift with tonal? Is it the same kind of, do you know what I'm asking? I'm trying to ask this
Yeah.
question. Like, does it
So
have the same effect on your muscles and your bones?
yeah, it 100% it does.
Okay.
So essentially, what causes muscle growth is mechanical tension. And so every single fiber in your muscles, every single muscle has essentially sensors or feedback mechanisms that measure how much is this muscle activated. But not activated is not purely enough. It's like, how much tension is being created, and how you create that tension doesn't actually matter. So it could be via traditional free weights, it could be via tonal, it could be by doing strongman competitions, or just being a farmer or construction worker. Your muscles know tension and adapt to tension, and then you
Okay.
have to progressively overload that tension to cause them to continually grow. The where it gets slight differences, and so that's kind of things. Bone, which is obviously important for menopausal females particularly, but
Right.
everyone, um, is about essentially torque. torque on bones. And if you create
Okay.
torque, and you can create torque, and that's all that's being measured there. It's a slightly different mechanism, but it's constantly measuring, is this bone trying to be bent? And if it is, I'm going to make it stronger and stop it from bending. And so those are the sort of the underlying physiological mechanisms. The additional thing of what you have tonal is we're a cable machine. And so what we actually have is this additional stability component because you're
Okay.
balancing against a fulcrum. And so something like, say, a squat is actually harder. You wouldn't be able to do the same weight squatting on tonal that you would necessarily on a free weight initially because you need to learn this like stability and balance skill as well. And
Right.
so we get to go
That's
lighter.
good
Yeah, no, it's hugely
because it's
beneficial.
functional. Yeah.
It's sorted out my shoulder health a ton from bench pressing because I now have to stabilize rather than just bang off my chest
But
a little
yeah.
bit.
And so how much space do you need from, say, the wall outward? And it comes with a bench too, right?
Yeah, it comes with a bench too. The space that we say in our guidelines is 7 by 7 by 7, so 7 feet wide, 7 feet out, and 7 feet high. It folds into a much smaller component when it's not being used, but if you want to be able to do the full movement library and rotational chops and lunging and reverse lunges and things like that, 7 by 7 by 7.
So is Tonal available in gyms as well? Are some gyms, is that something that I know it's at home and it's a personal use device, but are you also expanding into maybe like, building gyms or gyms? Is that?
Yeah. So historically, it's not a space that we have invested a ton into. But organically, we have noticed that there are a number of gyms, particularly personal training studios and boutique fitness gyms,
Yes,
that have bought Tonal and love Tonal, and have
I've
really
seen it. Yeah.
valued the benefit of it. So it's nothing something. It's more of like an organic movement than necessarily a very intended one. But as we speak today,
Yes,
just
because this is
actually,
coming out in like late January. Yeah.
yeah, we're in December now. But just today we launched the wait list for the Tonal Training Lab, which will be open when by this time it goes live. But the Tonal Training Lab is essentially a boutique fitness gym based on Tonal that will be led by our in-person coaches that is launching in New York in middle of January. So
Cool.
super exciting. So we'll be running classes in mornings and evenings. People, Tonal members or general population can book for those. But to yeah, we're running it for 6 weeks as a pop-up.
Okay.
But
To
really
see.
just excited to bring Tonal to more of a group fitness training experience.
Oh, I love that. Maybe we could get some Marni on the Move listeners to come too. That would be fun.
100% we should. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
in New York, so that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
If anyone here, I can rally a couple people, I'm sure. That's very cool. That's exciting. I mean, it sounds like, it's a good way to test a market and also, in the business of the business, right? It's a great way to kind of test a market. And it's always good to have somewhere people can experience your product, if they're not shopping for it directly or buying it. So that's great.
Yeah, like something like 50% of people that try a tonal buy a tonal.
Yeah.
And so we know that it's a super kinesthetic experience. You got to try it at the Jack Taylor.
Yeah.
Once you feel it, it's like, oh, now this is pretty cool. And so yeah, definitely looking at ways that we can have people doing that. And what's better than just feeling it is working out on it and seeing the
Yeah.
variety that you can do.
I mean, I feel like it's just for me, it's a no-brainer for someone who is an athlete that already has like a lot of my listeners are triathletes too. So, they have bike trainers, they have, their bike inside on the trainer, there's Zwifting
My wife does
or yeah.
triathlons and Ironman, so I'm fully versed in
Okay.
the triathlon
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel like even if they live in a house and they go to the gym, it's so easy. It's like, no, I just try to eliminate my ability to make excuses. That's my MO when it comes to training. So,
It's a pretty good one. Consistency is
yeah,
really important. So if you can eliminate excuses, then you're in a good spot.
that's my goal. That's my goal for 2025 is to like just consistency. Just for the first few months, consistency. Doesn't matter what I do. It's just because I have to get back to my training and swimming, which I've been good about. But now I'm getting back to running, and I really have to strength train. So, what are your tips for building consistency as someone who has SMAP? But
So
anyway,
I
yeah,
we did a report last year called the State of Strength where we looked at
Ooh,
175,000 members, um, 60 billion pounds lifted, followed like in the data anonymously, but followed them for a year. So, and one of the areas of that was we looked at consistency. How do our members, like what's associated with members being consistent? Because that's in essence, I think the holy grail for a fitness company is just how do you get people to be consistent with what? Now, for the most part, you run a lot and you kind of things, and we're pretty consistent people generally. But if you're thinking about like health applications, then there's a lot of people that are really struggling just to get their moving. So I have 3 tips from that report. Number one, keep it short. Like just start short. It doesn't need to be big. I'm a massive fan of exercise snacks. I work out. I'll do a set in because it's in my home, and so I'll finish a meeting. I'll finish a Zoom call. I'll go. I'll lift a set, maybe two, 5 minutes, and then go back on Zoom. And
ooh,
then
I love that.
I'll come and do that 3 times, 4 times in a day. And if I do it early, I'm going to continually do it. If I miss my early window, then I fall off the wagon. But if I get that first workout in, I get the endorphins and I feel good. I'm like, oh yeah, I can get another one of those. And so make it short, especially when you're starting. Number 2 was if you can exercise at a consistent time, doesn't matter what that time is, try and make it consistent because then you're scheduling it and kind of things. Number 3 is what we found our data shows is people that follow programs that sign up to one of our 4-week programs are about 20, I think, percent more consistent than people that do one-off workouts, like just to pick what you're doing today. Because that was I think Peloton's an incredible model. I'm not, and nothing bad about it. But that was
Yeah,
Peloton's way. It's like, oh, I'll do this workout and then this ride and then this. And it's like, well, that's not great. Like what we want is a bit more structure to our strength training. And
yeah.
so sign up to that program and you get like on average 20% more improvement. And the last one is check your stats. People that check their stats on our app, again, about 20% more consistent just because they're engaging with the data. So those are my 4 tips for building consistency.
Has many programs as we've discussed. So do you have, speaking of consistency, do you have programs that you could follow along with over like a 30-day program, or strength for runners, or strength for do you have all your programming is I have to dial in? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
have,
Yeah, I think there is a program called Strength for Runners, and there's something called Ski Strong, and
oh,
there's
cool.
there's multiple. There's run bike swim programs. There's a whole host from pickleball to tennis to more traditional endurance sports. And so yeah, there's specific programs for pretty much every target population that you could think of. Golf related
Golf
programs.
is good though. I think a lot of people need to strength train for that. It's definitely one of those things. Actually, have a friend who is a professional golfer, and she was also a runner, and we went and hit golf balls, and I was like sore for days, and it was one of the hardest, most mentally and physically challenging things I've ever done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's funny because all the best golfers in the world, it's much like endurance athletes.
yeah,
Strength training has been a core part of their programming for a while,
right,
like since Tiger's days, basically. There was a time when you didn't do it, but I think the last 20 or so years, every good
yeah,
golfer has done that. I recreationally hack. And yeah, not that many of my friends that go like, oh, strength train? No, but they all want to be able to hit 250, 300-yard drives.
right.
I'm like,
Well,
that's kind of starts with strength from the ground. It's
that's
translational forces.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you want to get faster at any of these endurance sports, the only way to do that, especially like I'm 50, like it's not gonna happen unless I like get some serious muscle mass, and it's just that's the way. You have to work like 20 times harder. So I think it's an amazing addition, and also for people who are just like everyday athletes that want to stay in shape, it's an awesome addition. And so how does all of your work with Olympians and Olympic athletes and the ski and snowboard team, like how does that all come together for you at Tonal?
Yeah. I'm really fortunate in that I get to work across sort of three, and me and my team across 3 areas. Number one, we collaborate with all the coaches for the programming, the exercises, the sets, the reps, the Ski Strong programs that we see on there. So I get to write some of those or help some of those and have a team that does that and sort of work with that. And that's really cool because you get to see like it's ego from my side, but you get to see tens of thousands of people that are suddenly doing this and getting stronger. And I did this and I loved it and it changed my life. And like just it's incredible to see the impact of like, oh, that must have been that's really good. You know, I
Yeah,
don't know, not all perfect, but some of them you're like, yeah, kind of things. And like, so number one, we get to write a lot of the programs. Number two, get to collaborate with the product team and the software team and the hardware team on what's coming next. Like, how do we bring some of this really high end science, some of the insights about consistency, or how do we stop people falling off the wagon, and what does research tell us about that, and bring that into product features, or new ways of
I love
training
that.
that could be really cool. How do we bring them into product so we get to work in product? And number three, get to work on things like that tonal training lab. Like, what's new ways that we can use our collective knowledge of the fitness industry and plot new go-to-market strategies for tonal, of ways that we can continue to have additional benefits.
That's so cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned like the second one, which was like the technology. Um, and I can totally delete this. Is it AI based? Like, are you using AI? So, because I don't see that anywhere in my questions, but it just sounds like very AI based. So, how does Tonal leverage the power of AI?
Yeah, so we're a technology company at heart, and then we have what we believe is the world's largest strength training database. So we're talking nearly 250 billion pounds that has been lifted across something like 50 million training sessions, 10 billion or so reps or so, and kind of things. And so what that does, and we measure all of that 50 hertz, it gives us an incredible data set to then be able to mine and recommend and suggest based off this ton of data. And so I'll give you a couple of examples because there's way too many and I don't fully understand all of them, I'm pretty sure. But number one is, we talked about progressive overload, right? The idea that's a fundamental training principle that we have to work a little harder than we did last week to get a bit stronger or to get a little faster or fitter.
Right.
We have an algorithm that detects when you're ready to move forward. So when you're ready to push the weight up, not by 5 pounds, but we can do 1 pound increments. When you're ready to go 1 pound increment, we can push you up automatically and we can suggest a new weight. Say, hey, we noticed those last 2 reps on the last time you did this exercise, last set, last week, last month, whatever it might have been, were kind of a bit easy. We can increase the resistance a little bit. So that's a machine learning and AI algorithm. We also use an AI algorithm. We have a phone app with a camera. We do pose modeling. So we do a 3D model estimation of your body from our phone app. And then we can start giving you coaching cues. Hey, Troy, when you go really deep, you butt wink and your tailbone tucks under, or you have knee valgus, or you have some instability. So we have this pose model that's based on machine learning algorithms or artificial intelligence algorithms that allows us to make these inferences
I
about
love that. Yes.
so yeah, those are two of the examples, but there's tons. It's literally baked into pretty much everything in the product. Is underpinned and supported by algorithms.
And so how are you bringing on instructors? Like, is that so like are you marketing the instructors? Like, are you doing sort of similarly, like it's more about, and this is not a question yet, and I'm now no longer reading my questions, but I'm just curious about the content and how you're building the content around the instructors, the kinds of instructors you're bringing on board. Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
like
is that
the full time instructors that are on Tonal, and there's 7 of them, they're amazing, amazing coaches in their own right. We try to have like a diverse mix of just different backgrounds and experiences and populations that they might specifically kind of talk to around that. And so we kind of try to be quite diverse. And within that, each of them have their own specific kind of niche area of where they maybe
okay?
speak to best and most, which is like their core. Not that they're pigeonholed into that, but they're their core audience. And
Okay.
then what we've actually started to do is bring on guest coaches for specific things. So we just worked with Bettina. I can't remember her last name for the life of
Okay.
me. but she
It's
was,
fine.
she was during pregnancy, and we'll come back and do something postpartum with her, kind of things. And
Like you
so we're
said,
trying to bring in these sort of specific kind of pieces to augment the full-time coaches.
awesome. And so what about you? Like, what's your workout? What's your go-to? What kind of athlete are you?
Yeah, I am. I mix. I do about half of our programs,
Hmm.
and so I do. I do mostly. We have two coaches called Joe and Akeem that kick my ass on a fairly regular basis. And like it's I would say traditional, like more traditional bodybuilding type kind of stuff. I'm
Hmm.
45 and trying to maintain that I'm still lift and I can still lift relatively heavy. But I've actually just started shifting a lot more to also we released a bunch of features called training effects, which is sort of a way of giving them more broad goals than just I want to build muscle or I want to lose weight or whatever it might be. This is be like, hey, I want to work on my functional strength or my movement quality, or my performance, my ability to move quickly. And so we released these training effect goals, and so I'm building in because longevity is important to me. Like I
Yeah.
want to be not just live a long time, but live have good years in the or good life in those years. And so I'm trying to incorporate a lot more stability and balance, single leg work, making sure I don't shorten the range of motion on my lunges
Right.
as probably as much. And so that's where most of my program is. It's probably about 50-50 traditional bodybuilding split and then about 50% more functional longevity.
Awesome. And what about wellness? Like, since you're into longevity, what are some of your like wellness hacks that are your go-tos?
Yeah, I really invest in the basics. I'm huge on sleep. I have a couple of young kids, so it's not always as perfect as it will, but like if I don't get I'm in bed for 9 hours and I'm asleep for eight, 90 something percent of the time.
That's
Um,
great.
and so that's like, and I just feel so much better around there. I'd eat a balanced diet. I'm not a number one, not a dietitian, and this is a hot topic. So I try to get in there, but I try to get enough protein. I eat
Yeah.
some veg, things, and that's probably there. But definitely, those are important to me. And honestly, just movement in general. I find like just getting 6, 8, 10,000 steps a day, just moving has been
Yeah.
super important for my overall wellness. Other than that, I don't do any red light therapy or saunas or ice baths I've done all of it at some point.
Yeah.
None of it's stuck for me. Not that it's not valuable, but it's not something that I do in my regular routine.
And then what can we look forward to? I know you talked about in January in New York City, you're going to have a tonal training lab, but what else is coming in the pipeline?
Yeah, so as part of that, on January the 8th, I guess we launched, not launched, but Tonal 2, a brand new tonal. That is really, really exciting. Been a lot of development for the team that takes everything that we've learned over the past 7 years of tonal and makes everything better.
Okay.
So we've increased the maximum resistance, so it's gone from 200 pounds to 250 pounds.
Hmm.
So increase for those people that are doing heavy deadlifts and things like that. It's now two heavy deadlifts. It's great. Like I've obviously been playing around with it for a while, and I'm like, wow, that's actually really heavy. I can deadlift comfortably 315, 350 on free weight, and
Wow.
250 on tonal is real heavy. Just the way the inertia works, it's heavy. So we've increased the max resistance. We've added this brand new training mode that is called Aero. And so it is, think of it being inspired by something like rowing, where it's responsive to how hard you pull and it has a gear system. But you're not
Ooh.
limited to just one movement pattern. You can do like what would be like a ski erging motion, or you can do med ball
Ooh.
slams, or you can do lunges, or you can do twists and chops with this very dynamic resistance. So you get this like huge cardio load, particularly if you keep the resistance quite light and you're moving a little quicker. Or you can get this real muscle kind of like more kind of things if you put the drag factor or resistance up. But it's not just one movement pattern, it's multiple movement patterns. So you can do cardio in a resisted fashion with strength
That's
kind of
so
movements.
that's so cool. Sorry, I'm just like I have no poker face, so I'm like so excited about this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I am too.
and
It's
when does it ship? So it drops in January, so people can start shopping for it.
just new and improved.
Oh my, awesome. So
Yeah.
people can they start buying it now? Like I know I'm not putting this up before January, but if I,
No,
no,
the
no,
first time
okay,
they buy it is Jan 8th is launch
okay,
day.
okay.
And so no one can buy it until then, and it'll be installed a few weeks after then, depending on lead time.
What were you saying? What's the installation process? You were saying in email it takes like 2 to 3 weeks to install it or to
Yeah, so
get on the list. Yeah,
we install the tonals. It's much like putting up a big screen TV, and so
yeah,
the only thing is like unlike a big screen TV, you are actually pulling on it, so we need to make sure that you hit the studs
yeah.
correctly. And so we have an install team that comes. So installation's normally 2 to 3 weeks from time of ordering, and we have a third party that installs it and kind of cleans it up and does the whole service spins there.
Can you install it in a concrete wall?
You can. There are some restrictions or some additional kind of pieces, but
Okay,
there's a wide range of walling from sort of traditional wood studs to metal studs to some forms of concrete are okay,
okay.
poured concrete.
I'm getting kicked out of my apartment, by the way, because by my partner, by my wife, because I have too much crap. She's like, no more bikes, but she hasn't said no to the tonal. So I'm like looking around for
Trade one
space.
out.
That she wouldn't even notice it, really. I mean, I'll just be like, oh, it's just a TV, you know.
Tell them it's a new
Anyway,
TV, you'll never know.
but that's like the biggest joke in our house because I mean, she's also a triathlete, but
Okay.
we live in a pretty decent sized apartment in New York City, but yeah, I mean, 7 feet, 7 feet, 7 feet is hard to find, but I think I can find it. Just get rid of some art.
It would be well worthwhile, and she'll get the benefits as a triathlete
Yeah.
too.
We could do so much cool content, but I have to just think about it in terms of where and also how I'm strategically making that happen with her. Uh, but this has been super, super awesome. So will you be in New York for the
I
launch?
am,
Yeah.
yeah. I arrive on the first for some setup pieces, and I'll be here pretty much or in New York most of January and ton of February too.
That's really exciting. I'm definitely going to come to some of the classes and maybe we can record something fun in person, like something shorter for my YouTube or for Instagram.
I think that'd be amazing.